Chumash and Rashi, the Torah portion, when the portion of Noach, Noah in English, we're in the third reading. The flood is flooding.
It's overwhelming.
Overwhelming, exactly. Let's get right into it. Folks, you ready? Chapter 7, verse number 17 in the first book, the book of
Page 50.
page 50 in the Chitas book. All right.
Who's it? What's there?
All right.
You hear my phone ring over there?
Okay.
Okay.
The Mabul, and it was the flood by Mioim, 40 days of on the earth, the year Hamayim, and the waters increased, the Yisu Sateva, and they raised up the ark, Mitaram, and it was lifted, Mi'al Haaretz, above the earth. Okay. 17 in Rashi. Now, if it was, the verse says that it was lifted, it was that it was raised, the ark. So what does it mean that it repeats itself and says it was lifted above the earth? So Rashi says, Mishukaz Hoysa Bamaim, it was submerged in water, Achadasar Amam, 11 amas, which is about 16 to 22 feet. Kisvina to Una, like a loaded heavy ship. Shemishukaz Mixas Bamaim, that's partially submerged in the water. And the verses that will be later, we'll see, will prove the point that he's making, that it was 11 amas. He's going to go through the calculation later, right? How it comes to that, which is interesting. L'chaim.
You like Rambam?
Okay, verse number 18. V'yigberu hamayim. And the waters surged, got strong, like from the word gibor. V'yirbu ma'oid, and they increased greatly. Al haaretz, on the earth. V'teilech hateva, and the ark went al pnei hamayim, on the surface of the waters. Now, what does it mean? They became surging strongly. So Rashi says, "Me'ibur ma'aleim," on their own, they increased. In other words, the rain stopped after 40 days, right? So, but it's still, there was surging the waters, right?
In the earth?
Well, yes, but that's not what the verse says over here.
Okay.
It's true what you're saying. It is from below, right? It wasn't raining from above. It is from below, but Rashi doesn't say that, or the verse doesn't say that. But that's, but seemingly, why Rashi doesn't say that, I'm not certain, because seemingly that's what it is, right? Maybe. All right. Verse number 19. And the water strengthened very, very much so. Allah, it's on the earth. And it covered all of the ha'arim agvoim, the high mountains, asher tachas kol hashamayim, that are under the heavens. Rashi in number. No Rashi. Right, no Rashi. Chamesh esrei ama, 15 handbreadths, and amas and handbreadths, milamaila, from above, gavra amayim, the waters were strengthened, surged, and they covered the mountains. In other words, they went over the mountains 15 cubits, which is about 22 or 22 feet or more. Rashi.
It's saying here that the water continues from above, not from below.
No.
Gavru amayim milamala.
But let's see Rashi. Milamaila shel goyve shel harim. So Rashi explains that we shouldn't make a mistake what it means from above. It doesn't mean from the heavens above. It means above the height of all the mountains. After all the waters reach the level, the Reshi Harim are the mountaintops. So in other words, they were above the mountaintops 15 amma. That's a lot. That's a lot of water and a huge, right?
Of course.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. 21. Beyigva kol basar. Sorry, Rashi. Beyigva kol basar. And all flesh expired. Haremis al haris. All those creepy crawlers on the earth. Ba'oif and all of the birds. Ubabehema, animals domesticated. V'chaya, wild animals. V'chol hasheretz, and all the creepy things. Hasheretz al aretz, that were crawling on the earth. V'chol adam, and all of humanity. No Rashi. Okay. 22. Kol asher nishmas, all that had nishmas ruach chaim, that had the breath of life, of living life, ba'apav, in their nostrils. Mikol asher becharava mesu, and all that was on the dry land died. Rashi in 22, Nishmas Ruach Chaim. What does that mean? Neshama Ruach Chaim means the spirit, the breath of the spirit of life. I don't know why he has to explain that. Like, why isn't that kind of obvious?
What about trees?
That's not what we're speaking about right now.
But they don't breathe. But they breathe the spirit of life.
I don't. He's not speaking about trees.
Okay.
I think he wants to refer to creatures that are above ground.
Yeah, it is. But haven't we said that already? Like, what is this adding? Right, you're talking about all animals and all humanity. What are you adding over here that we don't know yet?
Vegetation.
Asher becharava, that are on dry land, v'lo dogim, but not fish, shibayam, that are in the sea. So maybe that's what this verse is coming to exclude, right?
Yeah.
Is the fish. The fish did not corrupt their way, as opposed to animals.
Okay.
That is what this verse seemingly is coming to add. We're on verse 23 in chapter 7 in Parshas Noach. Okay. V'yimach kol hayam yakum, and it wiped out all that existed. Asher al pnei adama, that's on the face of the earth. Me adam, from man, ad behema, to animal, ad remes, until anything that moved, creepy crawlers, V'al ha'oif hashamayim, and the birds of heaven, v'yimachu mina aretz, and they were blotted out from earth, v'yishar, and was remaining ach Noach, only Noach, asher ita b'teva, and those that were with them in the ark. So Rashi is speaking about this word v'yimach. It's a word, I think it's the first time we're using, if I'm not mistaken. So Rashi said, "Yimach," wiped out. Lushan v'yifal hu. It's an active verb. Ve'ena lushan v'yipal, a passive verb. V'hu gizras is from the pattern of yifen, and he turned, v'yiven, and he built. Kol teva, any word root. Sheseifa hey, that has a final hey added on the word. Kigoin, like bana or macha, kana, these words. Kishuhu naisim, when the Torah puts avav yud b'roisha, avav and a yud at its beginning, nakud bechirik, and it is vowelized bechirik tachas yud under the yud. Yeah.
Amazing how much
Yeah.
he knew.
Yeah.
Tikduk.
Ach Noach. So Rashi is picking up now on the word Ach Noach. Only Noach. Lebad Noach. Noach Alein. Zeu pshuta. This is a simple meaning, right? Simple meaning, right? to the exclusion of Noach. Everything else was wiped out, right? Midrash Agada, but the Agada interpretation, Noach, he was coughing the kaya and coughing out dam, blood. Why? Because of the trouble of caring for the animals and the beast.
Wow. Don't delay your food.
So, Noach, but Noach, only Noach, pointing out to Noach, Yesh Aimrim, and there are those that say that he was injured because he delayed Mezainis Lari, giving food to the lion, the Yikishay, and the lion attacked him. I love Neymar, and this is what it says about him. Hein tzaddik ba'aretz yishulim. Behind the tzaddik, one is paid on earth. In other words, the righteous receive their retribution while on earth rather than in the afterlife. That sometimes you see, right, the righteous people who are, have a wretched situation in their life, right, because they're getting anything that they need to retribution for in this lifetime rather than in the afterlife. Okay? So I'm not exactly clear how the Midrash is learning out from so give me just one quick second. I'm just online teaching right now. People. Huh? No. Okay. Yeah. So means but, however, which means it's minimizing, right? So the commentators explain that Noach was minimized. How was he minimized? Because he delayed giving the food, so he got injured. Physically, he got minimized. That's what it means.
Which word?
Ach.
Means yes or but, or both.
However, but, whatever you want.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Or only,
Huh?
and also translate as
Yeah.
only.
Yeah, only. Meaning,
Only Noah.
only Noach only means to minimize,
Yeah.
right? Meaning it's only Noach. Yeah, only Noach got hurt, right? It's minimizing. That's the point. The word is a minimizer.
Good word.
Yeah.
The Igbaram,
Tzadikim yodu lishmecha.
right? The Igbaram and the waters surge. Remember the word Gibor, strong. They were very strong. Allah is on the earth. 150 days after the rainfall stopped, it was still surging, right?
I don't understand that. We'll find out.
Why?
150 days?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's related 40 days or something.
No, 40 days it rained, but then water was still surging from below. The depths from below waters were surging. Is that clear?
So they were there, means it's still coming out?
Still coming out.
So they were there for more than 40 days?
No, because the 40 days, it didn't cover the mountains. Right? It wasn't enough to cover the mountains. The surging.
So he wasn't in the ark just for 40 days?
No, almost a full year. Almost a full,
That's a misconception.
yeah.
Interesting, what's the source of water coming from below?
Well, it said in the beginning, we said in the beginning, there was Niftachu Arubas Hashamayim Me'atahim.
What's the source of where the water comes?
Well, there's a lot of water underneath the earth.
Under.
Underneath it, a lot of waters,
The earth is
right?
80% water.
It's Kilim Shluvim.
This guy, there's.
Okay, we're in chapter 8 now, verse number 1. Chapter 8, verse number 1. We got a truck over here because we got a lot to do. Yisrael Elokim is Noach, and he remembered God. It's Noach, he remembered him. and all of the wild animals, and the domesticated animals that are with him in the ark, and Hashem passed over a spirit or a wind, ala aretz, over the earth, v'yashayku hamayim, and the waters started to subside. Okay, let's see Rashi in number 1. Yizkar Elokim, and God remembered Hashem, this name, Midas Hadin. Name Elokim is the name of judgment. God sitting in judgment. But it was transformed now to the attribute of mercy. Through the prayers of the righteous. And the wickedness of the wicked, they transform the attribute of mercy, the midas adin, to the attribute of judgment. Shenemar, as it says, that God saw that man's evil was great, Hashem, right? And it said Hashem, which is compassion. And then God says, I will dissolve. But that's his attribute. This is the name that's associated with mercy, but yet it was transformed. And here it's the opposite. So the only thing is, like, where do we see that he prayed that therefore God transformed? Where do we get that from? I guess it's only from the content, from these words itself. That's what it's implied. And God remembered Noach. Why did he merit on behalf of the animals? The fact they did not corrupt their way before the flood, they did not have relations, but Teva in the ark. So it only remembers the animals. But what did he have? In the previous verses, we said about creepy crawlers, we spoke about birds, right? So why only animals are mentioned? So that Rashi says is because the fact that they didn't corrupt their way, these particular animals, before the flood, right? Others did, but they didn't, right? In other words, they didn't mate with other species. And that they were with him in the ark is bringing out the idea that in the ark also they didn't have relations, even with their own kind. Okay. V'yaver Elokim, next Rashi. V'yaver Elokim ruach, God caused the spirit to pass. Ruach tanchumim means a spirit of consolation, anacha, and relief. Avra lefanav, passed before God. Interesting, right? When I first read it, I didn't read it that way. Right? I read that, that there was a wind that passed over the earth. But Rashi is explaining that it's not that. Aha. Because then it says that the water subsided. The wind would make water subside. On the contrary, winds would make the waters go, would go, folks, you with me? Anybody here? Earth to heaven? Guys are all in heaven? So the fact that the waters were subsiding was not because of the wind. The wind would make it subside. The opposite. So what does it mean? That they're past the spirit before God. That's how Rashi is learning. Al Aretz, over the earth, Al Iske Aretz, and the affairs of earth. So this is all taken not in a literal sense, but before God. V'yashayku, and the water subsided, hanachas chema, denoting the subsiding or the calming of a fury. Okay. Verse number 2. Vayisochru. Visochru means closed. Mayanas tahim. the depth, the well springs of the deep, the arubas hashemayim, and the windows of heaven. They were closed. V'yikole ageshem mina shamayim, and they were ceased. The rains from heaven. I'm very confused. They finished 110 days earlier, seemingly. After 40 days. This is 150 days later. So why now all of a sudden the air is ceased? Let's see Rashi. The fountains that we get, right? That fountains were closed. When they were open, it says called Mayana all the fountains. Here it doesn't say all. Because they're remaining open among them. Those fountains underneath the earth that were needed for the world, like the hot springs of Tiberias, and similar to that. Right before it said all of the fountains underneath opened up. Now it said they were closed, and that doesn't say all though, because some were left open because they were a benefit to the world, like the well springs of Tiberias, the hot springs of Tiberias.
Yellowstone, Yellowstone also.
Yeah, could be.
Mm-hmm.
The Yikole, and they were restrained. That was V'yimane, means held back. Do not withhold your mercy from me. So he doesn't bring here. Rashi doesn't explain what's going on over here, unless this means after the 40 days, but doesn't seem to make sense. Why after 150 days he would say that the rain stopped from heaven? It stopped already 110 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you be saying that here? I don't know.
Confusing.
Sorachian. And the problem's not the verse. What's the problem? What's the problem? Huh? Of the verse? No. That's not the problem.
Not the 40 and my fishing.
Our problem is, why doesn't Rashi address it? That's the problem, right? Now, it's a lack of our understanding in Rashi, too. What you said is correct. What you said is correct, but it wasn't on the point. The point is, seemingly, this is an inconsistency in the simple meaning of the text that Rashi should address, right? And Rashi doesn't address it. So that we need to understand why. Now, that is because of our lack of understanding, is correct. Right. Okay. Now, verse number 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeshuvu hamayim, and the waters did tshuva. How did they do tshuva? They said, no, we're very sorry what we did. Yeah, exactly. They receded. Yeshuvu means to go back, right? Tshuva means to return. So they returned from where they came. That's tshuva, right? Yeshuva mayim, and they returned the waters mi'alaris from upon the earth, halach v'shoid, back and forth. Tamayim miktzei chamishim umaas yoim, and this now the receding of the waters, right, was at the end of 150 days. Now there's still 150 days. The waters were surging more and more, right, from below. And now they're receding. Let's see Rashi. At the end of 150 days, they began to diminish. And when was that? The first day of Sivan. According to the opinion that when was the second month? Which month? Cheshvan, right? Remember the two opinions. Rashi's only going to that opinion, even though he brought originally both opinions, which that itself then is a question. If he's only going throughout the verses according to the one opinion, so why did you bring the second opinion, right? If that's not according to simple meaning, okay? Question, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first of Sivan. Kate said, how so? So now he's going to go through some calculation of the calendar. So Be'esrim V'Shiva B'Kislev, the 27th day of Kislev, Paschal Gishamim. That was when the rains stopped. That was 40 days. We went through that, right? It was 12 days of Cheshvan from the 18th. It started to rain on the 17th, but it started in the middle of the day. So full 40 days was the 18th. That gives us 12 days from Cheshvan. And then you need 28 days, which is 28 and 12 is 40, right?
So Chabad is the only people who know this stuff.
But here he says the 27th they stopped. Oh, at the end of the 27th, the 20s, no, but that's only 27 days. I'm confused. Before he said 28. What the hector? Oh, look at that. The commentary says, earlier he said the 28th of Kislev. He meant that the rain stopped earlier in the morning on that day, which means on the 27th of Kislev was the last full day. Ooh. That's still problematic for me. Okay, we're not going to go into that. Okay, so then they stopped. Then the Hayeh Shloshim in Kislev. So you have 3 days left over from Kislev, right? From the 150 days. That's Shim Tisha Tevis in 29 days from the month of Tevis. Therefore, you have 32. The Shvat Adar Nisan Iyar Umeya Ushmanim Meya Ushmanim the Eser. So for these months, these 4 months, you have a total of 118. Right? If you figure out according to the preceding and the 32, that gives you Me'avav Chamishim, 150. Okay. Next. 4. Verse 4. V'tanach hateva. Oh. V'tanach. And it rested. The teva, the ark, b'chodesh hashvi, in the 7th month. B'shiva asar yoim, l'chodesh, on the 17th day of that month. Al Hare Ararat, on Mount Ararat, which is in Turkey, which that's where they have found remains of the, they found remains there. You can go watch on YouTube different things about that they have found down very deep down over there.
The word, yeah.
The 7th month, Sivan, that's Sivan. Who is Shvi Kislev? That's the 7th month from the month of Kislev, when Shaboy Paschal Gishamim, that's when the rain stopped. Right. V'shiva yoim, on the 17th day, Mikan Ata Lamad, from here you learn, Sha'isa Teva Mishikaz B'mayim, that it was submerged, Achaz Asar Esrei, 11 amos. Remember we said earlier that it was submerged in the water, 11 amos? So now he's going to prove it, how that is. So he explains. Because it's written, on the 10th month, on the 1st of the month, the tops of the mountains became visible. And that's the month of Av, the Mar Cheshvan, which is the 10th month from Mar Cheshvan. That's going to be in verse 5. Right? Next verse. We're in verse 4, but in verse 5 is going to skip from the 7th month to the 10th month. In other words, even though they landed there, the waters were still covering everything. That was the top of the mountain. Yeah. You ain't coming out then. A lot more water has to recede, right? Mm-hmm. So, the reason Shamim, okay. And the waters were over the mountains 15 amas. Remember, the verse already said that. And they diminished from the first day of Sivan ad echad ba'av, until the first day of Av, 15 ama, by 15 amas, the shishim yoim, in 60 days. Ze ama. So, in other words, it was 15 amas over, shishim over 16 days, hare ama, there you have an amma diminishing la'arba yamim for every 4 days. In other words, this much, this is an amma, an arm's length, right? So if 60 days, it went down 15, that means 15 ammas it went down till they hit the mountain, right? That means it had to go down in 60 days, 4 days times 15 would make the 15 ammas. So that means it went down in 4 days this much, right? Water went down. Should be Shisha Sivan because the 16th of Sivan, the Chasru Ella, Arba Amas, 4 Amas, Venocha Teva, the Teva came to rest. Liam Lamacharis on the following day, Lamadita from here you learn Shaisa Mishukas that it was submerged, Yama Bamaim, 11 Amas in the water. Because minus the 4, right? Okay. That was a math class, Torah math class. Okay. You don't have to go to math today, guys. Okay. You don't have to go to. Okay. Next verse. Verse number 5. Vahamayim and the waters. Hoylech hayu hoylech v'choser. We're going and diminishing. Choser means diminished. Ad chodesh asiri, until the 10th month. 10th month means not the 10th month from Kislev, right? Ba'asiri be'echad l'chodesh, the asiri be'echad, ba'asiri be'echad l'chodesh, and the 10th month, the first day of the month. Niru Rashi Haharim, the tops of mountains became visible. Rashi, a lengthy Rashi now. You ready? Asiri Niru Rashi Haharim. On the 10th of the month, the tops of the mountains became visible. Ze'av, that's the month of Av. Shuasira Mer Cheshvan. It's the 10th month from Mar Cheshvan. She's Chol Geshem. That's when the rain began. Elul. If you would say it was Elul, Asir the Kislev Shepasuk Geshem from the 10th means from Kislev when the rain stopped. Right, because it doesn't say 10th from what, right? So is it from when the rain started or when the rain stopped? From heaven, right? So now he's making the argument. Keshem Shataimer, just like you say, the Shashvi, the 7th month preceding the verse, it was Sivan, Shvi La Pascha was the 7th from when the rain stopped. It's impossible to say, therefore you must admit, Shvi, that you can't reckon the 7th month, Elam Mavsokab, but from the cessation of the rain. Shaharei, Loikolo Arbaim, Shadiridas Akashalmi, Wamei of Achamishim, Shaltiboris Amayim, because the 40 days of the rain that came from heaven and the 150 days that was intensified waters from below did not end ad Echad B'Sivan until the 1st of Sivan, V'ata Emer, the Shvi Ridas. And if you say there was a 7th means the 7th since the beginning of the descent of the rains, Ein Zeh Sivan, that would not be Sivan, but before Sivan, but it would be impossible to reckon the 10th month, El Yerida, other than from the beginning of the descent of the rains, She'im Ata Emer, because if you would say it means the 10th month, Lavsaka from the cessation, and that would be you would not find that in the first month of the first month, on the first of the month of the waters dried up upon the earth. In verse 13, Share me Kates are boyim yoim for at the end of the 40 days, Kashanira Rashi Aharim, when the tops of the mountains became visible. Shilach es ha'ayriv, Noach sent out the raven, the Esrim, the Echad Yoim Huchal, and he waited 21 days, Mishlichos Hayena, in sending out the dove. Arei Shishim Yoim, so there you have 60 days. Kishinir Roshi Aharim, when the tops of the mountains became visible. Asher Charva Pnei Adama, until the surface of the ground became dry. Beim Taimer, if you would say, She'elol Niru, that the tops of the mountains became visible in Elul, Nimsa, so it would turn out, Shecharva B'marchevin, they became dry in Mar Cheshvan, which begins 60 days after the first of Elul, who Kaira Isai, and the Torah calls it Rishon, the first month, but the first month would be Tishrei. Sharei Rishon, the first month of Brias Olam, Rishon, the Rabbi Yeshua is Bereshit, and Rabbi Yeshua it's Nisan. Okay, I'm not going to go through all that because it's like one thing depending on another that is showing that it can't mean that, because in the end, the first month, as will be said later, has to be Tishrei and not Cheshvan, which would come out accordingly. Okay.
Depends on the fact that this was the highest peak on its calculation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is Mount Carver at the highest peak in the world?
No.
No.
Probably in the region.
But all this calculation depends on.
Yeah, seemingly that's a good question. That's actually a very good question. Because when we said before 15 amas over the mountains, seemingly that was the tallest mountain.
Right.
Right? Otherwise, what does it mean 15 feet? It doesn't mean anything. So that would seem to suggest that Mount Ararat, at least at then, was the tallest mountain. I don't know if that's what we have to conclude or not, but that's a good question. Okay, verse number 6. Okay, we got a truck so we can finish. And it was after 40 days. Also, Noach opened up the window which he had made. At the end of 40 days, means from the time that you saw the tops of the mountains, they became visible. As also the window of the ark that he made, the tzoyer for skylight. This is not the door of the ark, which is made for entry and exit. Verse number 7. And he sent out his a raven, the Yates of Yatzin, and went and Vishoiv returned until the drying of the waters that are upon the earth. Rashi Yatzav Yishoiv, going and returning, It was going around in circles, around the ark. And didn't go on its mission because he was suspicious of Noach al Bazugay with regard to its mate. I got this chelik as learned out in the Talmud.
That's the ravens.
That's why he kept on returning. It was suspicious. Until the drying of the water. It's putay. That's a simple meaning, as it sounds. But the Agada interpretation is the raven was prepared for another mission. That's Iris Gishamim. When the rains were withheld, in the times of Elijah, Shenemar says that the ravens were bringing him bread and meat. And the drying of the line after the flood, that would have been okay. So in others, it's hinting to another time. Why Rashi brings that over here, I don't know, because seemingly, how does that fit into the simple meaning of the text?
When were the days of Elijah? When were the days of Elijah?
In the first holy temple, many, 1,000 years later.
Thank you.
Verse number 8. So he sent out the yoina. Now he sent out the dove, mitai from him, lirais to see heikalo amayim if the waters got lessened. Adama from upon the face of the earth. Rash Vishal the yoina. He sent out the dove, the Seif Shiva Yamim at the end of 7 days. Sharei Ksiv. After he sent out the raven, now he sent out a dove, because it says, and it says soon. It'll say in the verse. In verse 10, that he waited another 7 days. Because then from this, it's implied Atalamed, you learn that the first time also, he waited 7 days to send out the dove. The Yishlach, and he sent out the Ein Zeh Lashon Shlichus. This does not mean a mission, Ela Lashon Shiluah, but means sending out. Shilcha, he sent it off, Laleches Darka, to go on its way. The raven was sent on a mission, but the dove was sent, already leave. And through this he would see, if the water subsided, that if it would find a resting place, it would not return back to him. Verse number 9. But, however, the Loy Matzah did not find the dove, Manoyach, a place to rest, Kaf Raglav, for its feet. The Tashev Elav, so he returned to him, Elateva, to the ark. Because the water was on the face of the earth. And he sent out his hand, stretched out his hand, in other words, and he took her, and he brought her back into the ark. Rashi, in verse number 10, the Yachel, and he waited. We got to do verse number 10 first.
Wait another second.
And he waited another 7 days, another Yosef, and he continued to send out the dove from the table. Yachel, Lashon Hamtana, means it's a language of waiting, expression of waiting. So, okay. Verse number 11. And she brought, right, the dove. And she came to him, the Yoina Leiserev, towards the evening, and behold, Ale Zayis, a leaf of a olive branch, Torah Bifia, was torn in her mouth. Noach, and Noach knew that the waters have subsided from the earth.
I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
It always bothered me. The olive tree survived?
Trees survived,
But it's not, because they
right?
breathe.
And this was now, we're talking about a leaf. It doesn't mean that there were olives growing on it. It says a leaf. It doesn't say there was an olive on it.
No branch also.
Huh?
Just not a branch, just a leaf. A leaf.
Right, but I guess it grew pretty quickly. Right?
It would survive in the water. Just a leaf.
A leaf?
Yeah.
Seemingly, I don't know. Anyway, whatever.
Oh, I'm also surprised that an olive tree would be on top of a mountain.
What was it? No, it wasn't on top of the mountain. The bird flew. A bird flies, so it went down. And then the water subsided, right?
Okay, because it was all the way down.
Yeah.
That's what
On the land.
Enough for at least enough water subsided that you could get a leaf from an olive tree, right? Which is not like a palm tree, which is very high. Olive tree is lower.
So the trees didn't breathe,
I know. Good question.
because it says all breathing things.
He plucked it in with its mouth. I say that the dove was a male. I said female. That's what the Torah calls it. Pamim lashon zocher, sometimes masculine. Pamim lashon nekeva, sometimes feminine. If you call yoina should be mikra, because anytime the word yoina is lashon nekeva, is a feminine form, right? Yoina hageus kulam humais. Yoina paisa. Okay, just showing the form of it. Okay. Terev, plucked. Chataf, snatched. Midrash Agada explains the Midrash, Lashon Mazon, it means food. Darsha B'fiyah, it should be understood in its mouth, Lashon Maimer, to mean a statement, Teref B'fiyah, speaking of food, Amra, it said, let my food be bitter as an olive. That God is providing me from His hand, and it shouldn't be sweet, than being provided by a human being of flesh and blood.
This is all very confusing.
Better that God should provide for you a bitter food for your life, that rather you have to come on to another human being that they're going to provide for you.
He provided an olive?
It's a metaphor. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. 12. And he waited again. Shivas Yom, another 7 days. Achirim. And the Yaina did not gather itself to return to him further. Rashi in 12. Yachal made himself wait. Hu Lashon v'Yachel. Ela shezel Lashon b'Yifal. It's third person, v'Zel Lashon Yisrael. V'Yachel v'Yamtin. Yachel. Okay, so just some diktu. V'Hi be'achas. And it was verse number 13. Ba'achas, and the first. The Sheish. The Meos Shana. The 601st year. Barishan be'achad l'chodesh, on the first day of the first month, Charvu amayim mi'al haaretz, the waters had dried up from on the earth. V'yoser Noach michsei ateva, and Noach removed the covering of the ark. V'yar, and he saw, v'hinei charvu pnei adama, behold, the face of the earth is destroyed. Okay. Rashi 13, Barisha in the first month, Rabbi Eliezer, that's going to be Tishrei. Rabbi Yeshua, that's Nisan. Whoa, now it goes back to the argument. Charvo, he dried. Nasik, it means tid, became like mud. Shekarma Banel Shalmaila, whose upper surface formed a crust. Verse 14, last verse. And in the second month, Shivas Esrim Yoim, on the 27th day of that month, the earth became dried. Rashi, Shiva Vesrim, on the 27th of them, Yeridosam, the rains descend, B'chodesh Hashem, in the second month, Shivas L'chodesh, in the 17th of the month, Elo, right? So it went from the 17th of Cheshvan, a whole year, to the 27th. Right?
Mhm.
To a whole year plus 10 days. You say, so what, 11 days actually, sorry. The Eil on these 11 days. You say Alabana. These are the 11 days that the sun, the solar year, is greater than the lunar year. Mishpat Dor Hamabel, because the sentence of the generation of flood, Shana Tmima, was a whole year of destruction. Wow. Amazing.
So how long was he in New York for, please?
Huh?
How long was he in New York?
A full year.
Okay, that's
A full year.
before you said
Right?
almost.
No, tomorrow. Tomorrow, God's going to speak to Noach and say, Minateva, go out of the ark. Right?
For a year.
It's a full solar year. Yeah. Wow. And we just went through it.
He was old.
So briefly, the 17th of Cheshvan followed. The rains began. 40 days later, 28th of Kislev, right? 150 days later, the water started to recede on the 1st of Sivan, right? 17 days later, the ark rests on the mountain Ararat, right?
Mhm.
2 months later, the mountains on the 1st of Av, the mountains become visible. On the 10th of Elul, he waits 40 days, the verse said. That's the 10th of Elul. He sends out the raven. 7 days, the dove is sent out. 7 days, it returns. Right? Dove brings an olive branch after 7 days and then goes back out. Dove flies away. Noach removes the cover. That is the 1st of Tishrei. He removes the cover, but the land isn't dry. From the 1st of Tishrei, another month, almost 2 months, the 27th of Cheshvan, it's almost 2 months, that's when he exits. Wow. That's the calculation.
I'll bring my calculator.
Almost like today.
Yeah. All right, folks. See